YouTube, how we doing, family? It's your boy, Yo, and this is another episode of YoHoops. I go through every NBA game every day. Today's Friday, April 3rd. We have a 9-game NBA card. I'm going to walk you through my thoughts and let you know the sides I like, so please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your favorite game in the comment section below. Without further ado, let me get into today's games. Recap of yesterday, another winning day. We went 4-2 on the 6-game card. They tried to catch me slipping by announcing Wemby ruled out later in the day, but it didn't make a difference because the Spurs still whipped up on the Clippers. I was also a little surprised to see the Lakers get blown out by 40, but like I mentioned, you can only get so far without depth. I'm now 9-6 to start April. We've only got 9 days left in the regular season, so I'll make sure to finish it with a bang. In our first matchup of the evening, we have the Indiana Pacers in Charlotte taking out Charlotte Hornets. Hornets are minus 1,500 on the money line, and the total is 233.5. At this point, the Pacers are one game out of last place, so it's in their best interest to lose. Mind you, this team was just in the NBA Finals last year. Sure, they got hit with injuries, but I've never seen a fall off like that. They've got everyone except Siakam listed as doubtful tonight. I can't see them keeping up with the Hornets. Charlotte does come into this one on the second leg of a back-to-back, but no travel, and they blew out the Suns last night, so they were able to conserve minutes. They're back to being the #1 team in the league against the spread, now 47-30 on the season. Really not a team you've wanted to fade. I'm taking the Hornets laying the 15.5 as my next selection of the evening. Up next, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves in Philadelphia taking on Philadelphia 76ers. Sixers are minus 135 on the money line, and the total is 233.5. The Wolves come into this one on the second leg of a back-to-back, flying from Detroit to Philadelphia. They lost a close game against the Pistons last night, so all of their starters ended up playing 30 minutes. On the bright side, Anthony Edwards is back, and Joel Embiid is listed as doubtful, so I can see the Wolves keeping this one competitive. Rather than taking a side, though, I'm looking at a prop. I'm taking Anthony Edwards to stay under 26.5 points. Don't get me wrong, he's one of my favorite players in the league, but he's on a minutes restriction, and he was just ruled ineligible for any awards. I do think he contributes, but it's tough to get over 25 points in 20 minutes. They're more focused on the playoffs than jeopardizing Ant's health. I'm gonna lock it in as my next selection of the evening. Up next, we have the Atlanta Hawks in Brooklyn taking on Brooklyn Nets. Hawks are minus 1,600 on the money line, and the total is 226. I've mentioned it over the last couple weeks, but a lot of these lines are starting to get pretty efficient. I love the way Atlanta's playing, and I expect them to dominate this game, but 17 points is a lot of lumber to lay. With the Hawks, I do think it's warranted though. They've won 17 of their last 19 games, and a majority were in dominant fashion. We just saw them blow out the Magic in Orlando on Wednesday. Now facing the banged up Nets, this is light work. I was going to isolate this one to the first half just because the Hawks do sometimes let their foot off the gas late, but their bench is so deep that I actually think that's part of their edge. I'm taking the Hawks laying the 17 in the full game as my next selection of the evening. In our next matchup, we have the Chicago Bulls in New York taking on New York Knicks. Knicks are minus 1,100 on the money line, and the total is 237.5. Obviously, I expect New York to win this game, but recently, they haven't been getting a lot of dominant wins. They would have only covered this line in 2 of their last 10 games, and those were against the Wizards and the Pacers. For me, it really depends if Josh Giddey plays. He's currently listed as questionable, but if he does, I see the Bulls getting up to lose this one by 12. No real motivation besides playing spoiler, but the line is closing in their direction despite all the money being on New York. I'll lean to the Bulls plus a 14.5 as my next selection of the evening. Up next, we have the Boston Celtics in Milwaukee taking on Milwaukee Bucks. Celtics are minus 2,000 on the money line, and the total is 217. This is a bad spot for Milwaukee. Eliminated from the playoffs, Giannis is out, and now you're taking on the Celtics at full strength. They have been competitive in spots, but tonight Ryan Rollins and Gary Trent are also both listed as questionable. I have seen Boston let up in the second half of games once they're up, which is my only concern, so personally, I'm isolating this one to the first half. Their starters should be able to run up an early lead and coast on that through halftime. I'm taking the Celtics laying the 10 in the first half as my next selection of the evening. Up next, we have the Toronto Raptors in Memphis taking on Memphis Grizzlies. Raptors are minus 1,000 on the money line, and the total is 233.5. I've been mentioning how the Raptors need to win games to avoid being in the play-in. They haven't, and they're now tied for the 7th seed in the East. They're really 2 games out of 10, so at this point, it's becoming critical. I expect a concerted effort, but I'm still nervous laying 14 points without a point guard on the floor. I'd honestly lean to the Grizzlies at home getting this many points, but rather than taking a side, I'm looking at a prop. Surprisingly, he's the Raptors' most consistent scorer. I'm taking Jakob Poeltl to go over 11.5 points. He averages 10.8 in just 25 minutes, but we've seen his role elevate over the last couple months. He's gone over this line in 6 of his last 10, and like I mentioned, his best trait is consistency. Nothing special or flashy, he just shows up at the rim. I'ma lock it in as my next selection of the evening. In our next matchup, we have the Utah Jazz in Houston taking on Houston Rockets. Rockets are minus 1,600 on the money line, and the total is 233.5. I was slightly impressed to see the Rockets on a 4-game winning streak, but then I looked at who they've been playing. They did beat the Knicks, which was a good win, but then it was the Bucks, the Pelicans, and the Grizzlies. Mind you, they only would have covered this spread in one of those 4 wins. We talked yesterday about the Cavs being the worst team in the league against the spread. At home, the Rockets are the 2nd worst. Now 14-23 in Houston, they can't be trusted laying these big spreads. Sure, they should blow out the Jazz, but they don't have enough offensive firepower for me to be laying 20. I'm taking the Jazz plus the 17 as my next selection of the evening. Up next, we have the Orlando Magic in Dallas taking on Dallas Mavericks. Magic are minus 245 on the money line, and the total is 239. The big news for this one is Franz Wagner being back in the lineup for the Magic. He missed 22 games with a sprained left ankle, and Orlando needs him considering they're now tied for 10th in the East. The Mavs do have a few guys back like Cooper Flagg and Daniel Gafford, but it benefits them more to lose this game, and man for man, I see Orlando having way more talent on the team. Sure, Franz might be a little rusty, but they have the rest of their guys in, and they only need to get it done by 7. I'm taking the Magic laying the 6.5 as my next selection of the evening. Up next, we have the New Orleans Pelicans in Sacramento taking on Sacramento Kings. Pelicans are minus 210 on the money line, and the total is 234.5. Both team seasons are done, but if we're basing this one on the current lineups, the Pelicans are definitely winning this game. They are on the 2nd leg of a back-to-back, but they come into it at full strength, and they're now 12-3 against the spread as favorites. I've mentioned it plenty of times before, but when the Pels are supposed to win games, they typically do. The Kings got their one surprise performance out of the way against the Raptors on Wednesday. I think we're back to regular scheduled programming. I'm taking the Pelicans laying the 5.5 as my last and final selection. And that's going to conclude today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I'm now 9-6 to start April, 9 days left, so let's finish the regular season with a bang. I appreciate all the support so much. I do this every day for free, so please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's your boy, Yo! And until the next one, I'ma catch y'all. Peace.